It only takes one moment, one spark, one glance. My name is Emily. For 15 years, I lived a life that looked perfect on paper. A beautiful house in the suburbs, 2 incredible children, a husband who worked hard and provided for us. Jack and I had built everything we were supposed to build: a home, a routine, a sense of stability. And I told myself that was enough. Jack was kind, reliable, a good man. But over the years, our conversations thinned into logistics, carpool schedules, grocery lists, mortgage payments. We had become partners in function, not in feeling. Warmth, the laughter, the intimacy we once shared slowly faded into silence. Still, I never imagined I'd stray. Until Liam moved in next door. He was just the new neighbor at first, polite, friendly, a man who had relocated from out of state. But there was something about him, a quiet confidence, spark I hadn't seen in years. He spoke with passion, laughed easily, and seemed to carry the kind of joy that had long gone missing from my life. Our early interactions were harmless. A wave at the mailbox, small talk over hedges. But then those passing hellos turned into full conversations about books, music, travel, dreams, things I hadn't spoken about in years. And then came the rainy Tuesday. Jack was away on business. The kids were at school. I was sipping lukewarm coffee in a too-quiet house when the doorbell rang. It was Liam, soaked from the storm, holding a small basket of vegetables from his garden, smiling like he'd just walked into sunshine. I invited him in. We sat in the kitchen, sipping tea as rain whispered against the windows. He talked about Europe, about hiking through the Alps, about chasing sunsets and dreams. And I sat there, fully present for the first time in years, listening, laughing, remembering who I used to be. That afternoon changed everything from that day forward. Our encounters became deliberate, lingering moments, shared stories, long walks under the guise of neighborly conversation. He made me feel seen, like more than just mom or Jack's wife. With him, I felt like me again, but alongside the joy bloomed guilt, because Jack wasn't a bad husband. He had never hurt me, never failed to provide, and yet here I was, emotionally entangled with someone else. I hadn't crossed a physical line, but inside, something fundamental had already shifted. The night it all hit me, Liam and I were standing quietly at a neighborhood barbecue. The sun was setting, the sky painted in soft gold. Kids laughed in the distance. And then, in a low voice, Liam said, "I value our friendship more than I expected to." My heart raced. My breath caught. That night, lying next to Jack in the dark, tears slid silently down my cheeks. I realized I was standing at the edge of something dangerous, something never thought would happen to me. I loved Jack, at least I thought I did. But Liam awakened something I didn't know I'd lost. I decided then to step back, to rebuild what Jack and I had. I threw myself into our family, restarted weekend traditions, planned surprise dates. Told myself I could forget Liam, that I had to. But no matter how hard I tried, Liam lingered. His voice, his stories, his laugh. They echoed in the spaces Jack couldn't seem to reach. The truth hit me harder than I expected. I had become emotionally dependent on another man. And I couldn't outrun that. In desperation, I told my best friend, Sarah. She listened gently, without judgment. She reminded me of what was at stake: my family, my children, my marriage. Her words grounded me, but they didn't erase the ache, because emotions don't follow rules. They don't vanish just because we want them to. One evening, as twilight settled over my garden, I heard footsteps. I turned, and there he was, Liam. He looked at me with a mixture of sorrow and understanding. He told me he had noticed the distance, that he respected my situation, my marriage, but he couldn't pretend he didn't feel something too. He'd step away if I asked him to. In that moment, everything stood still. I was at a crossroads. Choosing Jack meant preserving the life we built, the memories, the vows, the family. Choosing Liam meant following something uncertain, wild, but real. I looked Liam in the eye and asked for time. Not because I was trying to have both, but because I needed to choose for the right reasons. Not out of guilt, not out of fear, but from truth. That's where I am now, standing in the space between comfort and desire, duty and self-discovery. This isn't about infidelity or romance. It's about identity, about the quiet erosion of self that can happen inside even the safest of lives. And whether I stay or go, whether Liam becomes a chapter or a footnote, this moment will forever mark the turning point, because I finally stopped living on autopilot and started asking what I truly want. Reflect deeply and honestly about what mattered. Most. He agreed, his gazing briefly before he left Malone, again surrounded by the heavy silence of night that night. As I lay in bed beside Jack, pretending to sleep, I thought deeply about who I was and what I truly desired. This emotional turmoil awakened something profound within him, forcing me to confront long-buried unhappiness and truths I'd avoided for years. I realized I couldn't continue in this painful limbo forever. A decision had to be made, not just for me, but for the well-being of my family and the integrity of my own heart. As the first rays of dawn filtered through the curtains, illuminating Jack's peaceful face, I resolved to find clarity. This decision I knew would shape my future and those I loved forever. It wouldn't be easy, it wouldn't be painless, but for the first time, I felt ready to face the consequences of whatever choice lay ahead. The next steps I would take had the next steps potential to either mend the fractures in my marriage or lead me onto a path of profound change. Either way, I knew there was no turning back. Morning came, gently filtering softly through the bedroom curtains. As the soft light spread across Jack's peaceful, peeping face, my chest tightened with anxiety. I quietly slipped out of bed, careful not to wake him, my heart heavy with thoughts of the decision I was about to make. My entire morning felt blurred and surreal. Every mundane action, preparing breakfast, sending the kids to school, tidying the kitchen, felt hollow, as if performed by someone else. All I could think about was the stark choice ahead. Off me, Liam's words echoed in my ears, his honest confession reverberating in my heart. The intensity of his sincerity had both shaken and stirred something deep within me. Once alone, I decided to walk, hoping the fresh air and solitude would clear my mind. I wandered aimlessly through the quiet streets of our neighborhood. Each house I passed held memories, years of shared experiences, friendships built, and moments cherished. But amid this familiarity, a nagging emptiness persisted, whispering softly that this life, though comfortable, wasn't enough. Eventually, I found myself standing at the edge of the small lake just beyond our neighborhood. The serene water, surrounded by tall trees, gently rustling in. The breeze usually brought me peace today, however, it mirrored the turmoil in my heart. Calm on the surface, yet troubled beneath. My reflection looked disturbed and uncertain, a woman torn between loyalty and longing. Just as I stood contemplating my reflection, my phone buzzed gently. It was Jack checking if I was okay after he had noticed my strange mood that morning. His care warmed me, reminding me of all that I risked losing, yet oddly enough, his message also highlighted the distance that had grown between us, a distance neither of us had acknowledged, let alone addressed. I assured him I was fine, promising we would talk later. Returning home, I saw Liam across the street, working quietly in his garden. My heart quickened as our eyes met briefly, but handsomely nodded respectfully and continued at his task. His reserved demeanor showed us respect for the space I'd asked for, but it also intensified my inner struggle. It seemed he was giving me the space I needed, yet the unspoken bond between us remained strong and undeniable. I entered my home feeling as if walls were closing in, the silence lewd and oppressive. Everything around me reminded me of my family's love and the life Jack and I had painstakingly built. Pictures of happy memories filled our walls. Moments when smiles were genuine, laughter came easily, and our hearts felt completely united. I couldn't ignore Theach inside, urging me to find that connection once more, determined, irresolved to speak openly with. Jack to confront our marital drift before McIngany. Drastic decision when he returned home from work. I nervously asked him to join me on the patio for a talk. We sat down, facing each other, tension hanging thickly in the air between us. Jack. I began, softly, voice trembling, meeting Jack slightly. I think we need to talk about us. I've been feeling distant contact. It scares me. Surprise and confusion clouded his face, then shifted gradually to concern and seriousness. Jack reached across, taking me hand. Emily, I've noticed it too. We've Beth been busy, lost in routines on live, felt you slipping away, but I guess I didn't want to confront it. His hones distruct, deeply validating my nod. Feelings, but also amplifying my guilt. We spoke open life for the first time in years, each sentence breaking barriers that had done knowingly grown between us. Jack admitted that work and responsibility distracted him from nurturing a relationship. He apologized for becoming incomplete. Unaware of how significant lie drifted apart in turn, I confessed my emotional struggle. Though painful, I spoke carefully, omitting Liam Sinvelvant, yet emphasizing how profoundly lonely and overlooked I'd felt as I shared my feelings. Tears slipped silently down my cheeks. Real life and sadness intertwined, listened intently, high sighs showing a mixture of understanding and regret. He promised me and himself that he would make more effort and suggested we attend couples counseling. His sincerity gave me hope, making my heart ache with gratitude and renewed affection. Over the following weeks, Jack couples counseling actively kept his promise. He planned family activities, small surprises, and thoughtful gestures that slowly started reigniting the closeness we'd lost. Yet despite his genuine efforts, I still found my thoughts drifting involuntarily toward Liam. I wondered constantly if this new connection with Jack was genuine enough to override my deep feelings for another. My interactions with Liam had become brief and distant, a conscious effort on both our parts. Still, a glimpse of him pulled my heart painfully. It was clear he was hurting too, quietly respectful, but undoubtedly feeling the same internal struggle. Despite his quiet acceptance of for distance, I couldn't help feeling amends, sadness, recognizing what had been sacrificed. Weeks of counseling few improve our marriage, yet I found myself still internally torn. My heart hovered between hope of full reconnection with Jack and lingerings of Liam, whose presence, thought distant, was still deeply felt. Then one evening at a neighborhood event, Liam and I ended up unexpectedly. For a brief moment, he quietly said, I've decided to move back home. I think it's best for everyone. The news hit me like a physical blow, causing my heart to touch with unexpected sharpness. I'm sorry. Liam added, gently, healing. I never meant to complicate your life. You deserve peace, and so does your family. Tears blurred my eyes, but I nodded. Quietly, his decision, though painful, was noble and unselfish. I realized in that moment the depth of his scare. It wasn't simply about his openness, but mine as well. In the days following Liam's decision, I felt a confusing blend of sadness and relief. Without his physical presence, the emotional weight lifted slightly, making space for me to sincerely focus on rebuilding trust and intimacy with Jack. Liam's departure, initially painful, became a catalyst for clarity and acceptance. Jack and I continued therapy, slowly but surely repairing the emotional wounds where he discovered joy in simple shared experiences, weekend hikes, quiet dinners, and spontaneous late-night conversations. Jack's effort reminded me daily of why I had chosen him so many years ago, and it became increasingly clear that despite everything, I still deeply loved my husband. Yet I knew in my heart that the scars of this emotional affair would remain. It had exposed the fragility of our marriage, the vulnerability of our hearts, and our mutual need for constant effort and openness. As Liam prepared to leave, I met him one summer briefly to say goodbye. Our conversation was heartfelt but dignifiedful. Of mutual respect, he smiled, soft light telling me, "Emily, you showed me what true care looks like. Take care of your heart, always." We parted amicable's closure, allowing us to step away from each other, respectfully returning homeas. I watched him leave, my heart atched with loss, but gratitude replaced. Kiltaknalodging, how this challenge in Jekarine had brought necessary growth and self-anews. Returning home thought feigning, Jack met me warmly at the door, pulling me into an embrace filled with warmth, forgiveness, and genuine love for the first time in months. I felt completely present, wholehearted, content to rebuild our marriage strengthened by the trials we'd faced together. As we stood there quietly in this doorway, I silently promised myself to cherish and nurture this new beginning, deeply understanding the value of true connection and the courage required to sustain it. With Liam gone, my life slowly regained a sense of peace and stability, though occasionally memories lingered. Reminding of what might have been, I learned to honor those emotions without letting them define me. Each day became a conscious step toward fully embracing life and family I'd chosen. Jack continued to show dedication, patience, and love. Our therapy sessions blossomed into a genuine partnership effort, getting us through conversations we'd previously avoided. Little by little, trust returned, reshaping our marriage into something more transparent and authentic than ever before. One weekend, Jack suggested a family trip, a spontaneous decision. Thought filled the children with excitement. We drove out to a cozy mountain cabin surrounded by nature, away from distractions. It was there, by the warmth of the fire and laughter of our children, I felt the fullness of our healing process. Jack reached over, gently holding me hand, quietly affirming our renewed bond. In that silent gesture, I felt endorsed, forgiven, and deeply loved. Life settled into a new rhythm, defined by open communication, shared dreams, and genuine connection. We spoke often, a beautiful future, our plans growing clearer and more aligned. The distance and loneliness side felt earlier seemed like a distant Maury, less a wound and more of a talisman. Learned several months later, as I tended to our garden, I paused to reflect on everything we'd overcome. Liam had unknowingly sparked a transformation, forcing me to confront neglected truths. Though painful, it had pushed Jack and me toward a deeper, more meaningful bond. As evening approached, Jack stepped into the garden, smiling softly. He wrapped his arms round me from behind, warmth radiating through us both. "We're okay, aren't we?" he whispered, gently turning toward him. I smiled, genuinely feeling truly at peace. I replied softly, meaning every word better than ever, as the sun dipped below the horizon, bathing the garden in hues of gold and pink. We stood together, resilient, united, and hopeful. In that quiet embrace, I felt gratitude, not only for the second chance we'd been given, but also for the courage we'd found to seize at our loved ones. Fragile had emerged stronger, reminding us both that true bonds are tested not in comfort but in the storm. And we'd weathered it together. Thanks for listening. Bye.